It is so good to be back with you again tonight. I know with everything reopening, I scaled back the days that I was reading, and yesterday I was just a little too wiped out to read, just to be totally honest. But tonight we're gonna make up for it. We're gonna do 3 pieces. That's Ian in the hallway because he's a little confused about the schedule. So he's literally outside the door. It's okay though. He loves being in the live without knowing it. So 3 stories about moms and how the things that we do with our kids change and influence their lives, hopefully for the better. My boys and I have been doing a lot together, building and doing stuff this summer. Hey, Uda. I'm laughing because Ian's right outside the door. Hang on. Hey, Ian. Yeah. Welcome to my live. Everybody says hi. What's up, y'all? Ha. What's up? Hey. That's what moms do. We roll with it. Hey, Becky. Hey, Uda. So, we have been doing, I think I talked before about the gardening and the planting and connecting my kids with the soil. And I found these 2 pieces. The third one is just going to be about the songs we sing our kids to sleep by and how that influences them. So the first one's from April of 2013. Hey, Deborah. It's Sibylla Merian inspired her love of nature and art in her daughters. The life of Sibylla Merian, a 17th century German-born naturalist, entomologist, botanical illustrator, and divorced mother of 2, paints a vivid picture for today's parents on how to get kids into science using art. Miss Merian, the subject of today's Google Doodle, made the process of engaging kids in science as simple as stopping to sketch the roses and the aphids on them as well. Today, we call involving children in science via art STEAM, science, technology, engineering, art, and math programs. But Merian was probably the very first STEAM-powered parent, and others in her field today still emulate her parenting as well as artistic and scientific techniques. What made her work unique and important is that she not only illustrated the plants, but the insects as well, said Wendy Hollander, who once headed up New York's Botanical Gardens Botanical Art Program and still teaches there. Technically, Merian's work was beautiful, but more important, she was really the first to include insects and their relationships to the plants. Born April 2nd, 1647 in Frankfurt to a family of Swiss heritage, she was encouraged by her stepfather to take up the genteel art of painting. However, in 1660, she began to paint images of insects and plants from specimens she had captured. She kept specimens and studied their life cycles, becoming one of the first archivists of the natural world. She did not quietly sit and paint pretty pictures, as was expected of women of her era, but rather turned painting into a passion that paid the bills and served to educate herself and her daughters. After getting married and later divorced from Johann Andreas Graf, according to J. Paul Getty Museum, Merian continued to paint and teach painting. The Getty site says that by 1686, Merian had left her husband and moved with her 2 daughters and elderly mother to a religious community north of Amsterdam in the Netherlands. As a mother, Merian brought her daughters Johanna Helena and Dorothea Maria into science via art, taking them out to her garden to collect specimens for study and as subjects for their art. Eventually, their collective work was displayed at the Getty under the heading Sibylla Merian and Daughters, Women of Art and Science. Enterprising and adventurous, these women raised the artistic standards of natural history illustration and helped transform the field of entomology and study of insects, said the Getty website. I love the fact that this woman back in the 17th century altered the image of women who fainted at the sight of a spider, redrew the boundaries for her children, and continues to inspire moms to do the same things with kids today. Years ago, my then mother-in-law, an artist and fan of Merian's work, gave me the book Roots, Shoots, Buckets, and Boots by Sharon Lovejoy to encourage me to share my passion for gardening and botany with my boys. She included sketch pads and charcoal pencils with the gift. Our perennial family favorite is to grow moonflowers and on summer nights to draw the blossoms and, more importantly, the hummingbird-sized moths that come out to feed on the nectar in the moonlight. Hollander recalls her own uphill battle as a mom trying to replicate Merian's parenting success by trying to get her son and daughter, who are now in their late 20s, interested in botanical art. I took them out on nature hikes, collecting flowers, and we all drew them afterwards, Hollander recalls. Now her daughter Abby Goldfarb teaches gardening and farming at an elementary school in New Mexico in a program funded by AmeriCorps. Her son, Jesse Goldfarb, works at the 1 Acre Fund in Rwanda. Her parenting achievements, Hollander says, had roots in her role model Maria Sibylla Merian. In the end, everything we did together actually did get them into careers in science, art, and botany in one way or another. Despite the advent of high-resolution photography, the skill of the botanical artist is in high demand, according to Hollander, who just surpassed her Kickstarter goal, which was $25,000, to put out a volume of Foraging and Feasting, a field guide to natural food, with a final sum raised of over $115,000. Hollander says the details Merian pioneered in her work, like detailing how a leaf attaches to a stem, became standards relied upon by those to correctly identify plants. What that told us was that when people need to identify a plant, they would much rather turn to a detailed and architecturally correct drawing than a photograph. What the story of Merian and her daughters tells me is that with April showers come Mayflowers and all the bloom-seeking bugs that can bring modern parents back in time to an old-school way of connecting our kids to a steamy new future. I will admit that we do have a plant identifier app on our phones, Gwen and I, and my neighbors have it too. It's called Picture This. And while it can give you a quick ID on what you think your plant is, we still go back to those Maria's drawings and look at how everything connects and what every vein and every insect, and half the time we wind up identifying the insects we couldn't figure out at the same time that we're identifying the plants. So that's one thing that all the cool tech in the world still hasn't caught up to Maria on from the 1600s. And this next one is how Anna Atkins blazed a garden path for women to sneak into science. This is from March 16th of 2015. All of these are Christian Science Monitor. We're on a roll. Many women in science today are still coming into their fields through the garden gate opened by English botanist and photographer Anna Atkins, the subject of today's Google Doodle, who may have been the first person to publish a book illustrated with photographic images. The Doodle celebrates what would have been Ms. Atkins' 216th birthday. Well, there's been huge change in science where women are concerned. It all started with the botany and women like Anna Atkins. Vicki Funk, a research scientist at the Smithsonian Institution's National Museum of Natural History's Botany Department, said in an interview, somebody's got to break the ice for women in science, and frequently it's in botany. Atkins was a trailblazer, not just an accomplished scientific illustrator, but perhaps some say the first woman to create a photograph. Born in 1799, Atkins began her career as an assistant to her father, the zoologist and chemist John Children. Trained as a botanist, Anna Atkins developed an interest in photography as a means of recording botanical specimens for scientific reference books, British Algae Cyanotype Impressions, says the Getty Museum. Atkins, much like celebrated botanical illustrator Maria Sibylla Merian, of whom we just spoke, before her, had a passion for the sciences at a time when women were relegated to amateur status by the male-dominated scientific community. And I am pretty sure that Camelia Mozpodu, who's watching this right now, is rolling her eyes, thinking, Lisa, tell them that that bias still exists. Guys, that bias still exists. There, I said it. Both Atkins and Merian paved the way for Catherine Assau, born in 1898, a botanist who became the 5th woman inducted into the National Academy of Sciences. When I started here at the Smithsonian 33 years ago, I was one of only 2 women in the entire building, Dr. Funk says. Today, more than half of the staff are women. However, one thing that has not changed since the days of Anna Atkins is that in every major botanical garden in the world is still run by a man. No woman has ever been the director of a major botanical garden. In an interview with the Monitor, Natural History Museum London bioarchaeologist Brenna Hassett writes, there's a long tradition of women being involved in the sciences without necessarily having the recognition of being scientists themselves. Dr. Hassett points out that many of the positions open to women in science in the past would have been restricted to entry-level or technician-type jobs, despite the obvious expertise required illustrating and cataloging finds that have both standard positions for women in many, which have both been standard positions for women in many of the earth sciences. Many women's contributions are acknowledged formally and appear in the historical record only in the forewords and the dedications to academic publications by their spouses or supervisors. Today, according to Hassett, while the sciences still struggle to recruit and retain women, it's possible to identify successful female sciences at all career stages in many different disciplines. Last week, Hassett and the Female Scientist Organization helped run Trailblazers, made global news with a Twitter campaign hashtagged #InMyShoes to help a little girl in England convince Clark's Shoe Company to expand its traditional selection of girl shoes to include ones with dinosaurs on them. Asked about the campaign and the irony of flowers being both a place of deep roots for women in science and an image often rejected as perhaps a little too girly for modern female scientists, Hassett said, well, I suppose that must depend on what is considered science. While botany is obviously a science, I imagine that flowers per se don't stir up the same association with the amorphous entity that science in the same way that dinosaurs do, although presumably because dinosaurs are rather thinner on the ground these days. Norfolk State University's research director and STEM educator Camelia Moses Akbodu, hey Camelia, says that women still struggle against a male-dominated scientific community to advance and be recognized. While women may have gained advances in holding higher positions and gaining recognition in the sciences since Anna Atkins' time, we are making greater family sacrifices to get them, says Dr. Akbodu. She says, men in science today often tell me they see a woman in science having a child as inhibiting her success. If you want a child, you're not seen as being serious about being a scientist, since much of your work coincides with your childbearing years. One thing was that nobody would dream of making a woman in Atkins' day feel was that she couldn't or shouldn't be a mother because she wanted to also make a contribution to science, Akbodu concludes. So, how far have we come, really? Today's a good day to think about that. Woo, last story. I'm going to leave you on a high note. I think it's a high note. Might be a low note, but in a good way. Ella Fitzgerald, her songs became the lullabies this mom sings to her babies. This is from April 25th, 2013, from the Christian Science Monitor. Ella Fitzgerald sang our lives into perspective with a smoky 3-octave voice that rose and fell during a time when we listened with our ears and not our eyes, without noting what curves a body possesses, and instead fell deeply in love with her sound, which still resonates across the barriers of age, time, social strata, and race. Today, advertisements offer us pricey ways to become timeless and flawless. Those offerings are just about keeping a wave upon the sand, whereas Miss Fitzgerald represents the ocean of human emotion. From a Virginian perspective, I love telling kids that you can be born in nearby Newport News, as Fitzgerald was, but die in Beverly Hills, as she did in 1996. According to her official website, Ella Jane Fitzgerald was born in Newport News, Virginia on April 25th, 1917. Her father, William, and her mother, Temperance, Tempe, parted ways shortly after her birth, and together Tempe and Ella went to Yonkers, New York, where they eventually moved in with Tempe's longtime boyfriend, Joseph De Silva. To support the family, Joe dug ditches and was a part-time chauffeur, while Tempe worked at a laundromat and did some catering. Occasionally, Ella took on small jobs to contribute money as well. Perhaps naive to the circumstances, Ella worked as a runner for local gamblers, picking up their bets and dropping off money. I tell kids here that you can go anywhere if you have a song in your ear, and I believe that, largely because it's Fitzgerald's voice in my heart that often pulls me back off of a rocky path. The first songs I ever sang at age 5 were Fitzgerald hits that my nanny played on the record player in our New York City apartment. Decades later, I sang them to audition for my spot in a tight and tiny vocal jazz program in a New Jersey college with instructor Myra Murphy. When I had children and lived aboard a sailboat, I sang into the wind with what I often hoped was her voice, and then crooned one of her famous tunes to my sons at bedtime. I call them her songs, even though she didn't write them. George and Ira Gershwin, Cole Porter, some other brilliant composers wrote them, but Ella, she made them sing. She made me sing. She makes me sing. I'm a little lamb who's lost in the wood. I know I could always be good to one who'll watch over me. Is a song, a sigh, a prayer, and a bedtime soothing. She didn't sing them, she breathed them into you. Fitzgerald performed during a time when music and voice were all that mattered, so they endure and are imitated today. They're imitated. But seldom can a modern record production and artist match the spirit and cast the thrall that Fitzgerald did in her recordings. When it came to joy, she could swing it and make words like, "From this moment on, you for me, dear, only 2:14, dear. From this moment on, from this happy day, no more blue songs, only whoop-de-doo songs from this moment on." Makes perfect and ageless sense. But one of the many gifts Fitzgerald had was that you believed her. When she sang, she didn't phone it in or auto-tone it or change the pitch. Fitzgerald was the real deal. I think the song she sang that really sums up her music and the passion many still hold for and from it can be found in the song "Our Love Is Here to Stay," written by George Gershwin, with the lyrics by Ira Gershwin, but immortalized by the First Lady of Jazz. The more I read the papers, the less I understand the world and all its capers, and how it all will end. Nothing seems to be lasting, but that isn't our affair. We've got something permanent, I mean in the way that we care. It's very clear our love is here to stay. not for a year, but ever and a day. The radio and the telephone and the movies that we know may be just passing fancies, and in time may go. But, oh my dear, our love is here to stay. Together we're going a long, long way. In time the Rockies may crumble, Mount Rushmore may tumble. They're only made of clay, but our love is here to stay. I know that we're celebrating what could have been her birthday long after her body has stopped its song. However, I'm here to tell you that Ella Fitzgerald will never die. Ella and our love for her are here to stay. Yeah, I know, I took a little license because I know it's Gibraltar may tumble, but lately it's looking like it's going to be Mount Rushmore. What can I say? I hope Walt's laughing. So, left you on a high note, and I can't wait to see you guys all again tomorrow night. We're only weekends for now, but hey man, the way these reclosings and reopenings are going on this merry-go-round, we may go back to every night. I don't know, we may reboot from day one. Hi Ray, congratulations on your sister, Ray Chacon's sister. Everybody, big round of applause. She just had a massive, incredible life event. So congratulations, Ray, and to your family. And hi, Tanya. And I hope you all have a wonderful 4th of July tonight. Watch those fireworks on TV. Stay the heck at home. I love you. Good night.